Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is bring about conversations of a psychological, mental health, emotional health paradigm. We do that as often as we can, usually several times per week. We continue to do that whenever it fits into my schedule. And so just a little overview on PTSD. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. If you're struggling with that or any other mental or emotional instability, it is super important to get help as quickly as possible. The healing of the brain is directly related to, in all honesty, the idea that we can respond to what the brain's needs are in a good way when we understand how to get help for traumatic experiences as quickly as possible. And so recovering emotionally is directly related to the idea that social and emotional instability and balance related issues do require a certain level of struggle only when we are not taking proper care of ourselves. So if you are struggling in that way, please feel free to reach out at PO Perception on Twitter or in the About Me section of this YouTube page. Either one will get you in touch with me or a member of my team, and we can make something happen from there. In any event, a couple of things to look at. PTSD is caused by trauma, and the more common the trauma is, or the more consistent the trauma is, the longer it will take in terms of, in some ways, making things harder to deal with, and or if you have more than one traumatic experience in close succession, then you're dealing with something known as CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is when the brain doesn't have time. Basically, it's the equivalent of an emotional concussion, and that can cause a lot of long-term challenges, not limited to brain fog and other instabilities as it relates to how you see the world, how you relate with others, and how you relate with yourself. Emotional instability and being up and down on a consistent basis ultimately can be valuable in a vacuum, so to speak. In other words, the vacuum being how we see the world, and kind of moving things forward in a positive and progressive direction, making decisions in that way can also be super valuable. Understanding that emotional instability is also a sign of trauma and the recovery thereof is also important. When one is looking back at traumatic events, their body may physically react. In other words, almost as if they're reliving the event, and or they are constantly going through a certain level of stress and or hardship, and truthfully getting to a place that isn't ultimately healthy for them or good for them, or leading them in a direction where they feel comfortable at any level. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the individual is incapable of getting any sort of help, but finding emotional balance and stability is directly needed in order to get some level of functionability and or healing as it relates to dealing with any sort of trauma-related experience. The sooner one does that, the quicker the recovery process can begin. The brain is most adaptable right after a trauma, within a few days to a few weeks, whereas the longer something has a sense to set in, reminders of triggers, both unconsciously and subconsciously, can become at a premium or in a very intense manner. And so finding ways to begin to understand how to magnify that and get it out in the open, also work through it as quickly and efficiently as possible so as not to create levels of stress that are unnecessary or re-triggering, consistently triggering, is important as well. Once again, building a team of people to be able to do that is somewhat challenging for many reasons, but the ability to do so does exist, and hopefully this has been helpful in you helping to understand how the brain processes trauma, and also kind of looking at life through a more open-minded approach as opposed to being too hard on yourself or someone who is struggling. So hopefully this is helpful. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.